There was a time when the man who would one day become Iron Man could not even save himself. Before the applause, before the red carpets, before millions of fans around the world cheered his name, there was a different story unfolding in the shadows. A story of talent buried under chaos, of fame colliding with addiction, of a life that seemed destined to collapse under its own weight. This is the story of the darkest moments in the life of Robert Downey Jr. and the long, painful road back to redemption. Robert Downey Jr. was born into a world of art, creativity, and Hollywood culture. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was a respected filmmaker known for his unconventional style. The young Robert grew up on film sets, surrounded by cameras, scripts, and actors. From the outside, it looked like the perfect beginning. But inside that world, there were shadows. In interviews years later, Robert Downey Jr. openly revealed something that shocked many people. At just 6 years old, his father introduced him to drugs. It was meant as a casual moment between father and son, but it planted a seed that would follow him for decades. What should have been childhood innocence slowly became something else. A vulnerability, a doorway into addiction. And once that door opened, it never fully closed. Despite the early darkness, Robert Downey Jr.'s talent was undeniable. As a teenager, he showed extraordinary charisma and emotional depth on screen. By the 1980s, Hollywood had already begun to notice him. He wasn't just another actor. He was magnetic. Directors saw brilliance in him. Audiences felt it too. His performances were raw, intelligent, and full of life. Then came the role that proved his potential to the world, portraying the legendary Charlie Chaplin in the film Chaplin. The performance was extraordinary. Critics praised him. Awards followed. He was even nominated for an Academy Award. At that moment, it looked like Robert Downey Jr. was unstoppable. But behind the success, another story was unfolding. A darker one. Fame can be intoxicating, but for someone already battling addiction, it can also be dangerous. The pressures of Hollywood, constant attention, and a lifestyle filled with excess slowly pushed Downey deeper into substance abuse. What began as experimentation had become dependency, and dependency became chaos. Throughout the 1990s, his life began to spiral. Arrests, court appearances, failed rehabilitation attempts. Headlines began to change their tone. The same newspapers that once praised his talent now described his struggles in painful detail. The public watched as one of Hollywood's brightest stars began falling apart. Every mistake became a headline. Every relapse became another story. And with each passing year, the gap between Robert Downey Jr.'s talent and his reality grew wider. Then came the moments that would define the darkest chapter of his life. In 1996, he was arrested for possession of drugs and weapons. It was one of several legal troubles that followed him throughout the decade. Each arrest chipped away at his reputation. Studios began to hesitate. Directors began to worry. Producers started asking a difficult question. Was he still reliable enough to hire? Eventually, the answer became clear. No. Despite his incredible ability, Robert Downey Jr. began losing ground. Roles disappeared. Opportunities faded. At one point, he was even fired from the television series Ally McBeal because of his struggles. For an actor who had once been nominated for an Oscar, it was a devastating fall. Hollywood had turned its back. Addiction does something strange to a person. It isolates them. Even when surrounded by people, they can feel completely alone. For Robert Downey Jr., fame did not protect him from that loneliness. In fact, it made it worse. The world watched his struggles from a distance, but very few people truly understood the pain behind them. Every failure carried shame, and every attempt to recover came with the fear of failing again. At times, it seemed like he was trapped inside a cycle he could not escape. The man who could portray heroes on screen could not yet become one in his own life. Eventually, the consequences became impossible to avoid. In 1999, Robert Downey Jr. was sentenced to prison after repeatedly violating probation. For a Hollywood star, the moment was shocking. This was not just another scandal. It was rock bottom. Inside prison walls, there are no film sets, no applause, no red carpets, only silence, and time to reflect. Years later, Downey would describe those moments as some of the most difficult of his life. Everything he had worked for, his career, his reputation, his future, seemed to be slipping away. For the first time, he was forced to face a painful truth. If nothing changed, he might lose everything. But sometimes the darkest moments become turning points. After years of struggle, something inside Robert Downey Jr. began to shift. Recovery is not one moment. It is a series of decisions. Difficult decisions. Painful decisions. And he began making them. He committed himself to sobriety. He rebuilt relationships. He slowly started putting the pieces of his life back together. It was not easy. Hollywood still remembered the chaos. Many studios were unwilling to take the risk. But a few people believed it. They saw the same thing that had always been there beneath the struggles. An extraordinary actor waiting for a second chance. That chance finally came in a way nobody could have. In 2008, Robert Downey Jr. was